So where we left off, Sophie had broken into castle. Yes, I do. Yes, Sophie had broken into the castle. She'd fallen asleep at the fire, and woken up to Calcifer. She yes, you guys stalking me. Everyone chatting right now is welcome to visit my home. Hmm. Some of you have already been in my home. Um, but yes, where we left off. So Sophie had made a deal with Calcifer that if she can break his connection with Howl, then he will break her curse. And she met Michael, she met Hal, he was a bit of a brat, and the king's men came to his door and gave him some money. So that was the moment that we left off at the end of chapter 4. We're now up to chapter 5. You'll come visit when it's legal? I would love to see you when it's legal. Yeah. All right. So, chapter 5, which is far too full of washing. The only thing to do, Sophie decided, was to show Hal that she was an excellent cleaning lady, a real treasure. She tied an old rag round her wispy white hair. She rolled the sleeves up her skinny old arms and wrapped an old tablecloth from the broom cupboard around her as an apron. It was rather a relief to think there was only 4 rooms to clean instead of a whole castle. She grabbed up a bucket and besom and got to work. "What are you doing?" cried Michael, a horrified chorus. "Cleaning up," Sophie replied firmly. "The place is a disgrace." Calcifer said, "It doesn't need it," and Michael muttered, "Howl will kick you out." But Sophie ignored them both. Dust flew in clouds. In the midst of it, there came another set of thumps at the door. Calcifer blazed up, calling, "Porthaven door!" and gave a great sizzling sneeze, which shot purple sparks through the dust cloud. Michael left the workbench and went to the door. Sophie peered through the dust she was raising and saw that this time Michael turned the square knob over the door so that the side with the blue blob of paint on it was downward. Then he opened the door on the street, saw out of the window. A small girl stood there. "Please, Mr. Fisher," she said, "I've come for that spell from my mum." "Safety spell for your dad's boat, wasn't it?" Michael said. "Won't be a moment." He went back to the bench and measured powder from a jar from the shelves into a square of paper. While he was doing it, the little girl peered in at Sophie as curiously as Sophie peered out at her. Michael twisted the paper around the powder and came back saying, "Tell her to sprinkle it right along the boat. It'll last out and back even if there's a storm." The girl took the paper and passed over a coin. "Has the sorcerer got a witch working for him too?" she asked. "No," said Michael. "Meaning me?" Sophie called. "Oh, yes, my child. I'm the best and cleanest witch in Ingery." Michael shut the door, looking exasperated. "That will be all round Porthaven now. Hal may not like that." He turned the knob green down again. Sophie cackled to herself a little, quite unrepentant. Probably she had let the besom she was using put ideas into her. But it might persuade Hal to let her stay if everyone thought she was working for him. It was odd. As a girl, Sophie would have shriveled with embarrassment at the way she was behaving. As an old woman, she did not mind what she did or said. She found that a great relief. She went nosily over as Michael lifted up a stone in the hearth and hid the little girl's coin under it. "What are you doing?" "Pulsifer and I try to keep a store of money," Michael said rather guiltily. "Hal spends every penny we've got if we don't." "Feckless spendthrift." Calcifer crackled. He'll spend the king's money faster than I burn a log. No sense. Sophie sprinkled water from the sink to lay the dust, which made Calcifer shrink back against the chimney. Then she swept the floor all over again. She swept her way toward the door in order to have a look at the square knob above it. The fourth side, which she had not seen used yet, had a blob of black paint on it. Wondering where that led to, Sophie began briskly sweeping the cobwebs off the beams. Michael moaned and Calcifer sneezed again. Hal came out of the bathroom just then in a waft of steamy perfume. He looked marvelously spruce. Even the silver inlets and embroidery on his suit seemed to have become brighter. He took one look and backed into the bathroom again with a blue and silver sleeve protecting him. "Stop it, woman!" He said. "Leave those poor spiders alone." "These cobwebs are a disgrace," Sophie declared, fetching them down in bundles. "Then get them down and leave the spiders," said Hal. Probably he had a wicked affinity with spiders, Sophie thought. "They'll only make more webs," she said, "and kill flies, which is very useful." Hal, "Keep that broom still while I cross my own room, please." Sophie leaned on the broom and watched Hal across the room and pick up his guitar. As he put his hand on the door latch, she said, "If the red blob leads to Kingsbury and the blue blob goes to Porthaven, where does the black blob take you?" "What a nosy old woman you are," said Hal. "That leads to my private bolt hole, and you are not being told where it is." Opened the door onto the wide, moving moorland and hills. "When will you be back, Hal?" Michael asked a little despairingly. Hal pretended not to hear. He said to Sophie, "You're not to kill a single spider while I'm away." And the door slammed behind him. Michael looked meaningfully at Calcifer and sighed. Calcifer crackled with malicious laughter. "Hey, Rick." Howl is extra rude in this compared to the film. Like the film Howl is lovable and kind of like annoying, but this Howl is sassy and rude. Oh, and I just realized I haven't changed the. There we go. All right, my entire face now. You didn't judge the whiskey from last stream. That's good. I thought you were joining me. You were also having whiskey. You'll bring good whiskey? Great. That sounds great. Since nobody explained where Hal had gone, Sophie concluded he was off to hunt young girls again and got down to work with more righteous vigor than ever. She did not dare harm any spiders after what Hal had said, so she banged at the beams with the broom, screaming, "Out, spiders! Out of the way!" Spiders scrambled for their lives every which way, and webs fell in swathes. Then, of course, she had to sweep the floor yet again. After that, she got down on her knees and scrubbed it. "I wish you'd stop," Michael said, sitting on the stairs out of her way. Calcifer, cowering at the back of the grate, muttered, "I wish I'd never made that bargain with you now." Sophie scrubbed on vigorously. "You'll be much happier when it's all nice and clean." "But I'm miserable now," Michael protested. Hal did not come back again until late that night. By that time, Sophie had swept and scrubbed herself into a state where she could hardly move. She was sitting hunched up in the chair, aching all over. Michael took hold of Hal by a trailing sleeve and towed him over to the bathroom, where Sophie could hear him pouring out complaints in a passionate mutter. Phrases like "terrible old biddy" and "won't listen to a word" were quite easy to hear, even though Calcifer was roaring. Housemate. think our food arrived. He ordered us Thai food earlier. Um, Sorry for the interruption. Even though Calcifer was roaring, "Hal, stop her! She's killing us both!" But all Hal said when Michael let go of him was, "Did you kill any spiders?" "Of course not," Sophie snapped. Her aches made her irritable. They look at me and run for their lives. What are they? All the girls whose hearts you ate? Hal laughed. No, just simple spiders, he said, and went, and went dreamily away upstairs. Michael sighed. He went into the broom cupboard and hunted until he found an old folding bed, a straw mattress, and some rugs, which he put into the arched space under the stairs. You'd better sleep here tonight, he told Sophie. Does that mean Hal's going to let me stay? Sophie asked. I don't know, Michael said irritably. Hal never commits himself to anything. I was here 6 months before he seemed to notice I was living here and made me his apprentice. I just thought a bed would be better than the chair. Thank you very much, Sophie said gratefully. The bed was indeed more comfortable than a chair, and when Calcifer complained he was hungry in the night, it was an easy matter for Sophie to creak her way out and give him another log. Our food is here. 1 second. No, it's okay. So my cousin and housemate ordered us food. She says hello. I'm just gonna keep reading while she's like setting our food up. Thank you. Hello to her. People are saying hello to you. What is this story about? So it's Howl's Moving Castle. You've come in a little bit late. This is chapter 5, but chapters 1 to 4 are still up on my channel and will be up on YouTube probably next week. And yeah, Meg is keeping you updated on what's happening. Yep, there we go. Thanks, Meg. Running the chat for me. I don't recall where we had left off. Yeah. Thank you. Was I? Here we go. Okay. The bed was indeed more comfortable than a chair, and when Calcifer complained he was hungry in the night, it was an easy matter for Sophie to creak her way out and give him another log. In the days that followed, Sophie cleaned her way remorselessly through the castle. She really enjoyed herself, telling herself she was looking for clues. She washed the window, she cleaned out the oozing sink, she made Michael clear everything off the workbench and the shelves so that she could scrub them. She had everything out of the cupboards and down from the beams and cleaned those too. The human skull she fancied began to look as long-suffering as Michael. It had been moved so often. Then she tacked an old sheet to the beams nearest the fireplace and forced Calcifer to bend his head down. He swept the chimney. Calcifer hated that. He crackled with mean laughter when Sophie discovered that soot had got all over the room and she had to clean it all again. That was Sophie's trouble. She was remorseless, but she lacked method. But there was this method to her remorselessness. She calculated that she could not clean this thoroughly without sooner or later coming across Howl's hidden hoard of girls' souls or chewed hearts, or else something that explained Calcifer's contract. Up the chimney, guarded by Calcifer, had struck her as a good hiding place. There was nothing there but quantities of soot, which Sophie stored in bags in the yard. The yard was high on her list of hiding places. Every time Hal came in, Michael and Calcifer complained loudly about Sophie. But Hal did not seem to attend, nor did he seem to notice the cleanliness, nor did he notice that the food closet became very well stocked with cakes and jam and the occasional lettuce. For, as Michael had prophesied, word had gone around Porthaven. People came to the door to look at Sophie. They called her Mrs. Witch in Porthaven and Madam Sorceress in Kingsbury. Word had gone round the capital too, though the people who came to the Kingsbury door were better dressed than those in Porthaven. No one in either place liked to call on someone so powerful without an excuse. So Sophie was always having to pause in her work to nod and smile and take in a gift, or to get Michael to put up a quick spell for someone. Some of the gifts were nice things, pictures, strings of shells, and useful aprons. Sophie used the aprons daily and hung the shells and pictures round her cubbyhole under the stairs, which began to look very homelike indeed. Sophie knew she would miss this when Hal turned her out. She became more and more afraid that he would. She knew he could not go on ignoring her forever. She cleaned the bathroom next. That took her days because Hal spent so long in it every day before he went out. As soon as he went, leaving it full of steam and scented smells, Sophie moved in. Now we'll see about that contract, she muttered at the bath, but her main target was, of course, the shelf of packets, jars, and tubes. She took every one of them down on the pretext of scrubbing the shelf and spent most of the day carefully going through them to see if the ones labeled skin, eyes, and hair were in fact pieces of girl. As far as she could tell, they were all just creams and powders and paint. If they once had been girls, then Sophie thought Hal had used the decay on them and rotted them down the wash basin too thoroughly to recall. But she hoped they were only cosmetics in the packets. Tea break. Check them out when you're not working? Sure. If you're interested in the story or just want something relaxing in the background, it's mostly just me talking and like replying to comments. It is the mug you brought me. Oh, you're lagging, Pippa? It's okay. You can like watch it later, or even if you're a little bit behind, it's fine. Keep getting distracted by tea. If I move it over here, maybe I can drink and read intermittently. She put the things back on the shelf and scrubbed. That night, as she sat aching in the chair, Alcifer grumbled that he had drained one hot spring dry for her. Where are the hot springs? Sophie asked. She was curious about everything these. Under the Port Haven marshes mostly, Alcifer said. But if you go on like this, I'll have to fetch hot water from the waste. When are you going to stop cleaning and find out how to break my contract? In good time, said Sophie. How can I get the terms out of Howl if he's never in? Is he always away this much? Only when he's after a lady. When the bathroom was clean and gleaming, Sophie scrubbed the stairs and the landing upstairs. Then she moved on into Michael's small front room. Michael, who by this time seemed to be accepting Sophie gloomily as a sort of natural disaster, gave a yell of dismay and pounded upstairs to rescue his most treasured possessions. They were in an old book under his worm-eaten little bed. As he hurried the box protectively away, Sophie glimpsed a blue ribbon with a spun sugar rose in it on top of what seemed to be letters. So Michael has a sweetheart, she said to herself. She flung the window open. It opened into the street in Port Haven too, and heaved his bedding across the sill to air. Considering how nosy she had lately become, Sophie was rather surprised at herself for not asking Michael who his girl was and how he kept her safe from Howl. She swept such quantities of dust and rubbish from Michael's room that she nearly swamped Calcifer trying to burn it all. You'll be the death of me. You're as heartless as Howl, Calcifer. Only his green hair and a blue piece of his long forehead showed. Michael put his precious box in the drawer of the workbench and locked the drawer. I wish Hal would listen to us. Why is this girl taking him so long? The next day, Sophie tried to start on the backyard, but it was raining in Port Haven that day, driving against the wind and pattering in the chimney, making Calcifer hiss with annoyance. The yard was part of the Port Haven house too, so it was pouring out there when Sophie opened the door. She put her apron over her head and rummaged a little before she got too wet, found a bucket of whitewash and a large paintbrush. She took these indoors and set to work on the walls. She found an old step ladder in the broom cupboard. She whitewashed the ceiling between the two. It rained for the next 2 days in Port Haven, though when Hal opened the door with the green knob green blob down, stepped out onto the hill, where the day was sunny, with big cloud shadows racing over the heather faster than the castle could move. Sophie whitewashed her cubbyhole, the stairs, the landing, and Michael's room. "What's happened in here?" Hal asked when he came in on the third day. "It seems much better." "Sophie," Michael said as if doom. "I should have guessed," Hal said as he disappeared into the bathroom. "He noticed," Michael whispered to Calcifer. "The girl must be giving in." It was still drizzling in Port Haven the next day. Sophie tied on her headcloth, rolled up her sleeves, and girded on her. She collected her besom, her bucket, and her soap. As soon as Hal was out of the door, she set off like an elderly avenging angel to clean Hal's bedroom. She left that until last for fear of what she would find. She had not even dared peep in. And that was silly, she thought, as she hobbled up the stairs. It was clear that Calcifer had all the strong magic in the castle, and Michael did all the hack work, while Hal gathered off catching girls and exploiting the two just as Fanny had exploited her. Sophie had never found Hal particularly frightening. Now she felt nothing but contempt. She arrived on the landing and found standing in the doorway of his bedroom. He was leaning lazily on one hand and completely blocked the way. "No, you don't," he said quite pleasantly. "I want it dirty, thank you." Sophie gaped at him. "Where did you come from? I saw you go out." "I meant you to," said Hal. "I've done your worst with Calcifer and poor Michael. It stood to reason you descend on me today. And whatever Calcifer told you, I am a wizard, you know. I didn't think I could do magic." This undermined all Sophie's assumptions. She would have died rather than admit it. "Everyone knows you're a wizard," young man said severely. "But that doesn't alter the fact that the castle is the dirtiest place I've ever been in." She looked into the room past Hal's dangling blue and silver sleeve. The carpet on the floor was littered like a bird's nest. She glimpsed peeling walls and a shelf full of books, some of them very queer looking. No sign of a pile of gnawed heart, but those probably behind or under the huge four-posted bed. Its hangings were grey-white with dust, and they prevented her from seeing what the window looked out onto. Hal swung his sleeve in front of her face. "Uh-oh. Don't be nosy." "I'm not being nosy," Sophie protested. "That room—" "Yes, you are nosy," said Hal. "You're a dreadfully nosy, horribly bossy, appallingly clean old woman. Control yourself. You're a victim." "But it's a pigsty," said Sophie. "I can't help what I am." "Yes, you can," said Hal. "And I like my room the way it is. You must admit I have a right to live in a pigsty if I want. Now go downstairs and think of something else to do. Please. I hate quarrelling with people." There was nothing Sophie could do but hobble away with the bucket clanking by her side. She was a little shaken and very surprised that Hal had not thrown her out of the castle on the spot. But since he had not, she thought of the next thing that needed doing at once. She opened the door beside the stairs. The drizzle had almost stopped, and sallied out onto the yard where she began vigorously sorting through piles of dripping rubbish. There was a metallic clash, and Hal appeared again, stumbling slightly in the middle of the large sheet of rusty iron Sophie had begun. "Not here either," he said. "You're a terror, aren't you? Leave this yard alone. I know just where everything is in it, and I won't be able to find the things I need for my transport spells if you tidy them up." So there was probably a bundle of souls or a box of chewed hearts somewhere out here, Sophie thought. She felt tidying up is what I'm here for, she shouted at Hal. "Then you must think of a new meaning for your life." For a moment it seemed as if he was going to lose his temper. Strange pale eyes all but glared at Sophie, but he controlled himself and said, "Now trot along indoors, you overactive old thing, and find something else to play with before I get angry. I hate getting angry." Sophie folded her skinny arms. She did not like being glared at by eyes like glass marbles. "Of course you hate getting angry. You don't like anything unpleasant, do you? You're a slitherer-outerer, that's what you are. You slither away from anything you don't like." Hal gave a forced sort of smile. "Well now we both know each other's faults. Now, go back into the house. Go on. Back. He advanced on Sophie, waving her toward the door. The sleeve on his waving arm caught the edge of the rusty metal, jerked and tore. Damnation, said, holding up the trailing blue and silver ends. What you've made me do. I can mend it, Sophie said. Howl gave her another glassy look. There you go again, he said. How you must love servitude. He took his torn sleeve gently between his fingers of his right hand and pulled it through them. As the blue and silver fabric left his fingers, there was no drain at all. There, he said. Understand? Sophie hobbled back into the chapel. Wizards had no need to work in the ordinary way. Howl had shown her he really was a wizard to be reckoned with. Why did you turn me out? She said, half to herself and half to the mic. It beats me, said Mike. I think he goes by Calcifer. Most people who come in here either don't notice Calcifer or they're scared of him. Break, and we finish chapter 5. Oh, I am dropping a lot of frames apparently. 1 second, guys. I don't think I can fix that right now. It might just be Australian internet. Yeah. Have you all been able to hear me okay? It's lagging. I think it's just because everyone's home. Is locked in her room. Okay, not too bad. That's good. No, Bug actually came out just before. She was going to sit with us. She said she was feeling like a goblin. So. Okay. Is the audio lagging as well, or is it just the video? Yes. Okay. Oh, that's so annoying. Hey, what can I? Sorry, guys, I don't think I can fix that. If it's really bad, I'll re-record these chapters and just put it up on YouTube. When someone says you need to find a new meaning to your life, I have no idea how to react. Yeah, look, that's really savage. I would probably be slightly shattered. Especially if someone as beautiful as Hal said that to me. I'd just be like, okay. We're going really good for time. It took like half an hour to read that chapter. Chapter 6. I'm going to move my mug again because it was actually really annoying me there. In which Howl expresses his feelings with green slime. I loved this scene. Okay. Howl did not go out that day, nor for the next few days. Sophie sat quietly in the chair by the hearth, keeping out of his way and thinking. She saw that much as Howl deserved it, she had been taking out her feelings on the castle when she was really angry with the Witch of the Waste, and she was a little upset at the thought that she was here on false pretenses. Howl might think Calcifer liked her, but Sophie knew Calcifer had simply seized on the chance to make a bargain with her. Sophie rather thought she had let Calcifer down. The state of mind did not last. Sophie discovered a pile of Michael's clothes that needed mending. She fetched out thimble, scissors, and thread from her sewing pocket and set to work. By that evening, She was cheerful enough to join in Calcifer's silly little song about saucepan. Happy in your work? Hal said sarcastically. I need more to do, Sophie said. My old suit needs mending if you have to feel busy, said Hal. This seemed to mean that Hal was no longer annoyed. Sophie was relieved. He had been almost frightened that morning. It was clear Hal had not yet caught the girl he was after. Sophie listened to Michael, asking rather obvious questions about it, and Hal slithering neatly out of answering any of them. Is a slitherer outerer, Sophie murmured to a pair of Michael's socks. Can't face his own wickedness. He watched Hal being restlessly busy in order to hide his discontent. There was something Sophie understood rather well. At the bench, Hal worked a good deal harder and faster than Michael, putting spells together in an expert but slapdash way. From the look on Michael's face, most of the spells were both unusual and hard to do, but Hal would leave a spell midway and dash up to his bedroom to look after something hidden, no doubt sinister, going on up there, and then shortly race out into the yard to tinker with the large spell out there. Sophie opened the door a crack and was rather amazed to see the elegant wizard kneeling in the mud with his long sleeves tied together behind his neck to keep them out of the way while he carefully heaved a tangle of greasy metal to a special framework of some kind. That spell was for the king. Another overdressed and scented messenger arrived with a letter and a long, long speech in which he wondered if Hal could possibly spare time, no doubt valuably employed in other ways, to bend his powerful and ingenious mind to a small problem experienced by Royal Majesty. To wit, how an army might get his heavy wagons through marsh and rough ground. Flattery will get you everywhere with Hal. He is mean, Pippa. And Meg. I love this bit. Okay. Hal was wonderfully polite and long-winded in reply. He said no. But the messenger spoke for a further half-hour, at the end of which he and Hal bowed to one another. Hal agreed to do the spell. This is a bit ominous, Hal said to Mike when the messenger had gone. What did Solomon have to get himself lost in the waste for? The king seems to think I'll do instead. He wasn't as inventive as you, by all accounts. I'm too patient and too polite, Hal said gloomily. I should have overcharged him even more. Hal was equally patient and polite with customers from Porthaven. But as Michael anxiously pointed out, the trouble was that Hal did not charge these people enough. This was after Hal had listened for an hour to the reasons why a seaman's wife could not pay him a penny yet, and then promised a sea captain a wind spell for almost nothing. Hal eluded Michael's arguments for giving him a magic lesson. Sophie sewed buttons on Michael's shirts and listened to Hal going through a spell with Michael. I know I'm slapdash, he was saying, but there's no need for you to copy me. Always read it right through carefully first. The shape of it should tell you a lot, whether it's self-fulfilling or self-discovering, or simple incantation or mixed action and speech. When you've decided that, go through again and decide which bits mean what they say and which bits are put as a puzzle. You're getting on to the more powerful kinds now. You'll find every spell of power has at least one deliberate mistake or mystery in it, and accidents. You have to spot those. Now take this spell. Listening to Michael's halting replies to Hal's questions, and watching Hal scribble remarks on the paper with a strange, everlasting quill pen, Sophie realized that she could learn a lot too. It dawned on her that if Martha could discover the spell to swap herself and Letty about at Mrs. Fairfax's, then she ought to be able to do the same here. With a bit of luck, there might be no need to rely on Calcifer. When Hal was satisfied that Michael had forgotten all about how much or little he charged people in Porthaven, he took him out into the yard to help with the king's spell. Sophie creaked to her feet and hobbled to the bench. The spell was clear enough, but Hal's scrawled remarks defeated her. I've never seen such writing, she grumbled to the human skull. Does he use a pen or a poker? Sorted eagerly, through every scrap of paper on the bench and examined the powders and liquids in the crooked jars. Yes, let's admit it, she told the skull. I snoop, and I have my proper reward. I can find out how to cure foul pest and abate whooping cough, raise a wind and remove hairs from my face. If Martha had found this lot, she'd still be at Mrs. Fairfax's. Howl, it seemed to Sophie, went and examined all the things she had moved when he came in from the yard, but that seemed to be only restlessness. He seemed not to know what to do with himself after that. Sophie heard him roving up and down during the night. He was only an hour in the bathroom the next morning. He seemed to be able to contain he seemed not to be able to contain himself while Michael put on his best plum velvet suit, ready to go to the palace in Kingsbury. She too. I am like just messing up so much right now. I need a tea break. Ugh. Okay. Maybe I should take like lessons so I can project and not get a dry throat when doing this. He seemed not to be able to contain himself while Michael put on his best plum velvet suit, ready to go to the palace in Kingsbury, and the two of them wrapped the bulky spell up in golden paper. The spell must have been surprisingly light for its size. Michael could carry it on his own easily, with both his arms wrapped round it. Hal turned the knob over the door red down for him and sent him out into the street among the painted houses. They're expecting it, Hal said. You should only have to wait most of the morning. Tell them a child could work for it. Show them. And when you come back, I'll have a spell of power for you to get to work on. So long. He shut the door and roved around the room again. My feet itch, he said suddenly. I'm going for a walk on the hills. Tell Michael the spell I promised him is on the bench. And here's for you to keep busy with. Sophie found a grey and scarlet suit, as fancy as the blue and silver one, draped into her lap from nowhere. Hal meanwhile picked up his guitar from its corner, turned the doorknob green down, and stepped out among the scudding heather above Market Chipping. His feet itch, grumbled Calcifer. There was a fog down in Porthaven. Calcifer was low among his logs, moving uneasily this way and that to avoid drips in the chimney. How does he think I feel stuck in a damp grate like this? Then you'll have to give him a hint at least about how to break your contract, Sophie said, shaking out the grey and scarlet suit. Goodness, you're a fine suit, even if you are a bit worn. Built to pull in the girls, aren't you? I have given you a hint, Calcifer fizzed. Then you'll have to give it to me again. I didn't catch it, Sophie said as she laid the suit down and hobbled to the door. If I give you a hint and tell you it's a hint, it will be information, and I'm not allowed to give that, Calcifer said. Where are you going? To do something I didn't dare do until they were both out, Sophie said. She twisted the square knob over the door until the black blob pointed downward. Then she opened the door. There was nothing outside. It was neither black nor grey nor white. It was not thick or transparent. It did not move. It had no smell and no feel. When Sophie put a very cautious finger out into it, it was neither hot nor cold. It felt of nothing. It seemed utterly and completely nothing. What is this? He asked Calcifer. Calcifer was as interested as Sophie. His blue face was leaning right out of the grate to see the door. He had forgotten the fog. I don't know, he whispered. I only maintain it. All I know is that it's on the side of the castle that no one can walk around. It feels quite far away. It feels beyond the moon, said Sophie. He shut the door and turned the knob green downward. He hesitated a minute and then started to hobble stairs. He's locked it, said Calcifer. He told me to tell you if you tried to snoop again. Oh, said Sophie. What has he got up there? I've no idea, said Calcifer. I don't know anything about upstairs. If you only knew how frustrating it is. I can't even really see outside the castle. Only enough to see what direction I'm going in. Sophie, feeling equally frustrated, sat down and began mending the grey and scarlet suit. Michael came in quite soon after that. The king saw me at once, he said. He he looked around the room. His eyes went to the empty corner where the guitar usually stood. Oh no, he said. Not the lady friend again. I thought she'd fallen in love with him and it was all over days ago. What's keeping her? Calcifer fizzed wickedly. You got the signs wrong. Heartless Howl is finding this lady rather tough. He decided to leave her alone a few days to see if that would help. That's all. Bother, said Michael. That's bound to mean trouble. And here was I, hoping Howl was almost sensible again. Sophie banged the suit down on her knees. Really, she said, how can you both talk like that about such utter wickedness? At least I suppose I can't blame Calcifer, since he's an evil demon. But you, Michael, I don't think I'm evil, Calcifer protested. But I'm not calm about it, if that's what you think, Michael said. If you know the trouble we've had because Hal will keep falling in love like this. We've had lawsuits and suitors with swords, and mothers with rolling pins, and fathers and uncles with cudgels, and aunts. Aunts are terrible. They go for you with hat pins. But the worst is, when the girl finds out where Hal lives, turns up at the door crying and miserable. Hal goes out through the back door. Calcifer and I have to deal with them all. Hate the unhappy ones, Calcifer said. They droop on me. I'd rather have them angry. Now let's get this straight, Sophie said, pushing her fists knobbily in red satin. What does Hal do to these poor females? I was told he ate their hearts and took their souls away. Michael laughed uncomfortably. The news come from Market. Hal sent me down there to blacken his name when we first set up the castle. I said that sort of thing. It's what aunts usually say. It's only true in a manner of speaking. Very fickle, said Calcifer. He's only interested in the girl. He's only interested until the girl falls in love with him. Then he can't be bothered with her. But he can't rest until he's made her love him, Michael said eagerly. You can't get any sense out of him until he has. I always look forward to the time falls for him. Things get better then. Until they track him down, said Calcifer. You'd think you'd have the sense to give them a false name, Sophie said scornfully. Scorn was to hide the fact that she was feeling somewhat foolish. Oh, he always does. He loves giving false names, his things. He does it even when he's not giving girls. Haven't you noticed that he saw Jenkins in Port Haven, and Wizard Pendragon in Kingsbury, as well as horrible Howl in the castle? Sophie had noticed, which made her feel more foolish still, and feeling foolish made her angry. Well, I think it's wicked going around making poor girls unhappy. It's heartless and pointless. He's made that way, said Calcifer. Michael pulled a three-legged stool up to the fire and sat on it while Sophie sewed, telling her of Hal's conquests and some of the trouble that had happened afterward. Sophie muttered at the fine suit. She still felt very foolish. You ate hearts, did you, suit? Why do aunts put things so oddly when they talk about pieces? Probably fancied you themselves, my good suit. How did you feel the raging aunt after you? As Michael told her the story of the particular aunt he had in mind, it occurred to Sophie that it was probably just as well the rumours of Hal had come to market shipping in those words. She could imagine a strong-minded girl like Letty otherwise getting very interested and ending up very unhappy. I had an error screen pop up. Is everything good? You're okay now. It's gone, so I'm hoping it's good. Yep, it is. All right, awesome. Michael had just suggested lunch, and Calcifer, as usual, had groaned when Hal flung the door open and came in, more discontented than ever. Something to eat? Said Sophie. No, said Hal. Hot water in the bathroom, Calcifer. He stood moodily in the bathroom door a moment. Sophie, have you tidied this shelf of spells in here by any chance? Sophie felt more foolish than ever. Nothing would have possessed her to admit that she had gone through all those packets and jars looking for pieces of girl. I haven't touched a thing, she replied virtuously, as she went to get the frying pan. I hope you didn't, Michael said uneasily, as the bathroom door slammed. Rinsings and gushings came from the bathroom while Sophie fried lunch. He's using a lot of hot water, Calcifer said from under. I think he's tinting his hair. I hope you left the hair spells alone. For a plain man with mud-colored hair, he's terribly vain about his looks. Oh, shut up, snapped Sophie. I put everything back just where I found it. She was so cross that she emptied the pan of eggs and bacon over Calcifer. Calcifer, of course, ate them with enormous enthusiasm and much flaring and gobbling. Sophie fried more over the spitting flames. She and Michael ate them. They were clearing away, and Calcifer was running his blue tongue around his purple lips when the bathroom door crashed open. Hal shot out, wailing with despair. Look at this, he shouted. Look at it! What has that one-woman force of chaos done to these spells? Sophie and Michael whirled round to look at Hal. His hair was wet, but apart from that, neither of them could see that it looked any different. You mean me, Sophie began. I do mean you. Look, Hal shrieked. He sat down with a thump on the three-legged stool and jabbed at his wet head with his... Look, survey, inspect. My hair is ruined. I look like a pan of bacon and eggs. Michael and Sophie bent nervously over Hal's head. It seemed the usual flaxen colour, right to the roots. The only difference might have been a slight, very slight, trace of red. Sophie found that agreeable. It reminded her a little of the colour her own hair should have been. I think it's very nice, she said. Nice! Screamed Hal. You would. You did it on purpose. You couldn't rest until you made me miserable, too. Look at it. It's ginger. I shall have to hide until it's grown out. He spread his arms out passionately. Despair, he yelled. Anguish. Horror. The room turned dim. Huge, cloudy, human-looking shapes bellied up in all four directions and advanced on Sophie and Michael, howling as they came. The howls began as moaning horror and went up to despairing brays, and then up again to screams of pain and terror. Sophie pressed her hands to her ears, but the screams pressed through her hands louder and louder still, more horrible every second. Calcifer shrank hurriedly down in the grate and flicked his way under his lowest log. Michael grabbed Sophie by her elbow and dragged her to the door. He spun the knob to blue down, kicked the door open, and got them both out the streets in Port Haven as fast as he could. The noise was almost as horrible out there. Doors were opening all down the road, and people were running out with their hands over their ears. Ought we to leave him alone in that state? Sophie quavered. Yes, said Michael. If he thinks it's your fault, then definitely. They hurried through the town, pursued by throbbing screams. Quite a crowd came with them. In spite of the fact that the fog had now become a seeping sea drizzle, everyone made for the harbour or the sands, where the noise seemed easier to bear. The grey vastness of the sea soaked it up a little. Everyone stood in damp huddles, looking out at the misty white horizon, the dripping ropes on the moored ships, while the noise became a gigantic, heartbroken sobbing. Sophie reflected that she was seeing the sea close for the first time in her life. It was a pity that she was not enjoying it more. The sobs died away to vast, miserable sighs, and then to silence. People began cautiously to go back into the... Some of them came up timidly to Sophie. Is something wrong with the poor sorcerer, Mrs. Witch? He's a little unhappy today, Michael said. Come on. I think we can risk going back now. As they went along the stone quayside, several sailors called out anxiously from the moored ships, wanting to know if the noise meant storms or bad luck. Not at all, Sophie called back. It's all over now. But it was not. They came back to the wizard's house, which was an ordinary crooked little building from the outside that Sophie would not have recognized if Michael had not been with her. Michael opened the shabby little door rather cautiously. Inside, Hal was still sitting on the stool, sat in an attitude of utter despair. He was covered all over in thick green slime. There were horrendous, dramatic, violent quantities of green, oodles of it. It covered Hal completely. It draped his head and shoulders in sticky dollops, heaping on his knees and hands, trickling in glops down his legs and dripping off the stool in sticky strands. It was in oozing ponds and crawling pools over most of the floor. Long fingers of it had crept into the hearth. It smelled vile. "Save me!" Calcifer cried in a hoarse whisper. He was down to 2 desperately flickering small flames. "This stuff is going to put me out." Sophie held up her skirt and marched as near Howl as she could get, which was not very near. "Stop it," she said. "Stop it at once. You're behaving just like a baby." Howl did not move or answer. His face stared from behind the slime, white and tragic and wide-eyed. "What shall we do? Is he dead?" Michael asked, jittering beside the door. Michael was a nice boy, Sophie thought, but a bit helpless in a crisis. "No, of course he isn't," she said. "And if it wasn't for Calcifer, he could behave like a jellied eel all day for all I care. Open the bathroom door." While Michael was working his way between pools of slime to the bathroom, Sophie threw her apron into the hearth to stop more of the stuff getting near Calcifer and snatched up the shovel. She scooped up loads of ash and dumped them the biggest pools of slime. It hissed violently. The room filled with steam and smelled worse than ever. Sophie furled up her sleeves, bent her back to get a good purchase on the wizard's slimy knees, and pushed Howl, stool and all, toward the bathroom. Her feet slipped and skidded in the slime, but of course the ooziness helped the stool to move too. Michael came and pulled at Howl's slime-draped sleeves. Together they trundled him into the bathroom. There, since Howl still refused to move, they shunted him into the shower stall. "Hot water, Calcifer," Sophie panted grimly. "Very hot." It took an hour to wash the slime off Howl. It took Michael another hour to persuade Howl to get off the stool and into dry clothes. Luckily, the grey and scarlet suit Sophie had just mended had been draped over the back of the chair, out of the way of the slime. The blue and silver suit was ruined. Sophie told Michael to put it in the bath to soak. Meanwhile, mumbling and grumbling, fetched more hot water. She turned the doorknob green down and swept all the slime out onto the moors. The castle left a trail like a snail in the heather, but it was an easy way to get rid of the slime. There were some advantages to living in a moving castle, Sophie thought, as she watched the floor. She wondered if Howl's noises had been coming from the castle too, in which case she pitied the folk of Market Chipping. "He's so dramatic." But mood when your hair isn't like. Definitely had a my hair is not right today tantrum before. Maybe I haven't called on like dark spirits, but maybe I should. Maybe it would make me feel better. By this time, Sophie was tired and cross. She knew the green slime was Hal's revenge on her, and she was not at all prepared to be sympathetic when Michael finally led Hal forth from the bathroom, clothed in grey and scarlet, sat him tenderly in the chair by the hearth. "That was plain stupid," Calcifer sputtered. "Are you trying to get rid of the best part of your magic or something?" Hal took no notice. He just sat looking tragic and shivering. "I can't get him to speak," he whispered miserably. "It's just a tantrum," Sophie said. Martha and Letty were good at having tantrums too. She knew how to deal with those. On the other hand, It is quite a risk to spank a wizard for getting hysterical about his hair. Anyway, Sophie's experience told her that tantrums are seldom about the thing they appear to be about. She made Calcifer move over so that she could balance a pan of milk on the logs. When it was warm, she thrust a mugful into Howl's hands. Drink it, she said. Now, what was all this fuss about? Is it this young lady you keep going to see? Howl sipped the milk dolefully. Yes. I left her alone to see if that would make her remember me fondly. It hasn't. She wasn't sure even when I last saw her. Now she tells me there's another fellow. He sounded so miserable that Sophie felt quite sorry for him. Now his hair was dry, she noticed guiltily. It really was almost. She's the most beautiful girl there ever was in these parts, Hal went mournfully. I love her so dearly. She scorns my deep devotion and gets sorry for another fellow. How can she have another fellow when all this attention I've given her? They usually get rid of the other fellows as soon as I come along. He's so conceited. Oh my god. Okay, Sophie's going to fix him. Fine. Sophie's sympathy shrank quite sharply. It occurred to her that if Hal could cover himself with green slime so easily, then he could just as easily turn his hair the proper color. Then why don't you feed the girl a love potion and get it over with? Oh no, said Hal. That's not playing the game. That would spoil all the fun. Sophie's sympathy shrank again. A game, was it? Never give a thought to the poor girl, she snapped. Hal finished the milk and gave it to Mug with a sentimental smile. I think of her all the time, he said. Lovely, lovely Letty Hatter. Sophie's sympathy went for good, and with a sharp bang, a good deal of anxiety took her. Oh, Martha, she thought, you have been busy. So it wasn't anyone in society you were talking about. Oh no! Did the frames cut out right at the climax? Did you guys miss the ending? It was dramatic. I've got an error screen again. Okay, it's gone. Were you able to hear the end just then? Or did you want me to reread the last paragraph? It wasn't too bad? Well, okay, that's good. At least it wasn't too bad. So we just found out that Hal is in love with Sophie's sister, which is great. Amps up the drama. This was not in the film. Tea indeed. Yeah, no, Sophie, you haven't read the book before. The sisters aren't in the movies. Oh, movie. Yeah. So Hal, this whole time that Sophie's been living there, Hal has been pursuing who he thinks is Letty, but is actually Martha? Yeah. Sophie is not pleased. But yeah, we did well this time. We finished exactly on the hour. The chapters are getting longer too. The live action that we were discussing, that we were like creating ourselves, Meg. Quick, if you could cast Hal, who would you choose? Like, what actor would you choose? Mhm. Meg and I have been discussing Timothée. He is pretty and he is skinny and he has dramatic flair. Yeah. Oh, I love it. The whole chat thinks Timothy Chalamet is ideal for Hal. I agree. Is he too little? Oh, I don't know, Meg. If Arn thinks Timothy, I can't go against that. And I'm a big fan of Timothy right now, so feelings it. But see, he's not that like he just needs more shoulder. Timothy doesn't have shoulder going on. Now, I don't know who I would cast as Sophie. That's like that's the one we were struggling with. We had like multiple actors that we were like who could be Hal. Um what was the one that was really popular, Meg, that everyone was talking? Um Ben Barnes. Lots of people wanted Ben Barnes to be Hal, but I think he's a little bit too old. He is an angular beanpole. Ah, as I said, yes, he is an angular beanpole. A pretty angular beanpole. This has just become a Timothy Chalamet fan chat. Um, that's not what we're about here. Yes, Ben Barnes. Hmm? He was a great Prince Caspian. I loved Prince Caspian as a kid. I loved that book so much. So I was very excited when I did say Florence Pugh for Sophie. I love Florence. She would be a great Sophie. Ezra Miller for Hal. He does have the dramatics. He's definitely dramatic enough for Hal, and the flailiness. He's skinny and he has shoulders. Thinking on. I feel like we should just keep the same Calcifer voice. It's like I can't think of anyone better. Ezra? He was an amazing Caspian. Yeah, look, the more you say Ezra, the more I'm like, love. I do love Ezra. Who played Calcifer in the dub? I'm not sure. Um, I watched the Japanese one more often. Who watches the English one most? Like Jack Black? Jack Black is Calcifer. Oh, is it Billy Crystal on? Billy Crystal's good though. Billy Crystal was a really good Calcifer. Jack Black is Calcifer. Like he would make him almost too comedic. Oh, maybe I don't know. I've never seen Jack Black in a serious role. Does Jack Black do serious roles? Mm. So Ezra or Timothée? How? Florence Pugh, hands down, or does anyone else have suggestions? We're making our own fan cast. We're gonna, I don't know, I guess plot our own film. Who wants to write the script? Someone write the script and we'll send it in. Like, I've got, I can talk to a connection. You have feelings about Jack Black? Okay, so Billy Crystal. Oh yeah, who would be old Sophie? She's like gonna be in the film more than young Sophie. Oh yes, yeah, Judy Dench. We did say this. Thank you for reminding me, Meg. Mm. Okay, so we've gotten through this much. That is not very much. 6 chapters. How many chapters does this book have? It's got 21. That's not bad. We're doing well. Judy Dench. You would be great. Yeah. Okay. Do you guys like this setup, or should I move back to my? Because I'm noticing now, looking at the screen, the lights are kind of shimmery. That might get annoying. They're cute. It's a tree. It's a whole tree. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed there's like the bars. I might have to fiddle with the lighting in here if I'm gonna keep doing it in the living room. Well, we should it is as a tree. It's actually our Christmas tree that we just never took down because we're cheap. We're cheap and we just got like a stick tree and put a bunch of baubles on it. And like lots of like silvery horse figures. So many silvery horse figures. I mean, I could just change. I was thinking of getting like a comfy chair. It's like I do have a few. I'll just move around. I like each stream. I'll just change positions and see what works best. Eventually, we'll find a great spot. Mm. I don't have any space in my room to put like a new chair. There are just too many bookshelves. um, okay, we should probably wrap this up. We we did the designated amount of chapters. It was lovely reading to you all and having you all talk to me and chat afterwards. That was nice. And I'm looking go I oh yeah, my food is still waiting for me. She put it in the fridge. That's okay. Okay, well, thank you for all coming. And yeah, I have Thai food. Um, and I will see you all on Sunday. I feel like these streams come around very quickly. You're welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. Yeah, see you Sunday. Good night, guys. Have a good night. Sleep well. Bye.